my name is Beck and welcome to a spoiler-free and also a spoiler review for STARSIGHT by Brandon Sanderson. This is the sequel to Skyward and it's got Cytonic coming out in November this year, and I wanted to discuss this in a spoiler-free and also a spoiler manner. So you'll notice the outline of this video at the moment is green, which is why I am not talking about spoilers yet. They will come later. So when the outline changes to red, that's when I'm going to discuss spoilers. If you haven't read this book, obviously don't watch that part because I don't want to spoil the ending for you. But let's discuss what STARSIGHT is about. So this clearly follows Skyward. If you haven't read that book, obviously I'm going to spoil it now because you can't really talk about a sequel without talking about where the first book left off. So if you want to check out my spoiler-free review for Skyward, I'll link it below. STARSIGHT opens about 6 months, I think, after Skyward has finished. So now Spencer is a pilot, she's openly a Cytonic, and the humans on Detritus as well as Spencer are actively fighting against the Krell, and the Krell seem to be stepping up their tactics in a more alarming manner. So the fighting is becoming even more dire than it was initially in Skyward. So things are starting to escalate and we don't know why. Additionally, Spencer is also trying to put herself in utmost danger so she can spark her Cytonic powers, because when they responded in Skyward, they responded when she was under such duress that she needed to call on them instinctively, and she's trying to recreate that as well, and Cobb really calls her out on that, which I quite enjoyed. One of the things I also enjoyed about this was I quite liked the world building. So we got a lot of that in Skyward with Detritus, but in this book it occurs in a different manner, and I'm not going to talk about that till the spoiler section for obvious reasons, but I quite enjoyed how things expanded in here, and I loved how, while I thought Spencer had grown to her capacity in the first book, obviously she's got further to grow and further to question, and she definitely did that in here. So in terms of world building, pace, characterization, I think that this book did them really well. I did only give it a 4 stars though, because for spoilery reasons that I won't mention yet, I felt like this kind of rehashed what had already happened in a formulaic way in Skyward. So it kind of felt like a repeat, but done in a different way to support the growth of Spencer's character that we hadn't quite seen yet. So I did like how it made Spencer develop, but that meant that when I read this for the first time, because I recently reread this and I have a different perspective on it now, when I read this the first time, I found it quite difficult to get into because it felt the same as Skyward did. But upon rereading it, I actually appreciated all of the depth and the deeper angles this was going for. So for those reasons, I gave it a 4 like I said. I now want to discuss spoilers, so if you haven't read this book, don't watch this section and I'll talk to you in the comments if you've paused now. So now to discuss spoilers. The reason that I found this kind of rehashed Skyward was because Spencer effectively went to flight school on STARSIGHT, that planet where all the aliens are, and she had to recreate herself in a new flight, Flight 15, and that felt very similar to what she was doing in Skyward, except obviously in this one she's supposed to be a spy under the name of Alanik, the alien who crashed on her planet. So there are different facets to this, and I like how it expanded culturally, which was really cool to see all the different alien species and everything, and all of the different types of people and creatures and smells like vapor that built up their team. And I also got really angry at the superiority, and I think Brandon Sanderson nailed that because it made me feel a lot. And I hated Winzik so much, who is like the King Krell, who is in charge of the superiority, who is ultimately the one who is in charge of Spencer's planet being constantly crushed. So I hated him. He's the perfect villain, and I really loved how this ended as well. It had so many different things in terms of world building, characters all splitting off. It had potential for the magic to be built up more so with the Cytonics, and I believe that Jorgen is also a Cytonic. I think after he found all of the doom slugs underneath Detritus at the end of this book, there were hundreds of them, it said. So I think following that there is going to be an emergence of more Cytonics in the book, but I quite like that he's developing in a similar way to Spencer, and that he also had Gran as his mentor, if you will. So in fantasy there's often that old mentor trope, and I usually see it in the form of like an old wizard who knows all this old style magic who is training this young apprentice, but I really liked seeing it in here where Jorgen was just trying to make bread with his eyes closed with Gran. I found that very wholesome, and I quite liked their play off each other too. Other things I really liked, I did tear up in this, and that was when Spencer said to Hisho that he got the first shot at a human and she deactivated her ship and floated out into non-gravity and basically made herself vulnerable so that he could make a choice. And then he chose to obviously be in her flight and support her based on her knowledge of what the hyperdrives are now. So I loved seeing that building of trust between Spencer and not just Hisho but all the other characters as well. And I found it interesting that I thought Braid died when I read it in the past, but she actually obviously didn't, and is going to cause a lot of problems later. So her and Winzik are going to be the villains, I think, and it also makes me wonder where Braid came from, because she said that she was taken from her family at 7 years old. So is she the only one that has been raised in this manner, like Winzik raised her, or is she just like a once-off? Is she an outlier? Or do we have to worry about a whole planet, effectively, of people like her that are rather aggressive and not seeing reason because they're so brainwashed? So this set up a lot for me, and upon reflection, I did really like, again, the depth of it. I liked Spencer building new friendships, but the things that I didn't like was we already had that built up in Skyward. And so when that was taken away from me, it took me a while the first read through to get into this because I wanted all of the characters that I'd already understood and grown to develop with. So hopefully we get to see like a merging of that in the next book, because I would like to see all of the alliances that Spencer has made effectively join forces. And I think with Kuna or Suna, I'm not sure how to pronounce their name, with Kuna in this book, Winzik said that Spencer initiated Kuna's death because Spencer ultimately is too aggressive and is with the humans and they therefore need to be eradicated because they're so dangerous. He twisted it in a political angle, but Spencer actually helped Kuna escape and sent them off to detritus so that they can become like a political alliance. So I really like that Brandon teased out the politics in this, and I think he's going to build on them again next. But at the same time, I don't think Spencer is going to be there for any of it, because I think she's blasted herself off in her cytonic state to a different place altogether. So I think we're going to get a version of what Skyward and Starsight have built, but again, potentially with Spencer not present for the whole thing, which is kind of annoying. Like, I want her there to inform the mechanisms of all these characters that she knows, but at the same time, I'm still curious to see this universe literally expand again and again. So ultimately, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I did like Skyward better, but that doesn't mean that I didn't like this at all. I quite enjoyed it. So let me know down below if you liked this book and if you liked it the same or more than Skyward. I would be interested to know. But thank you so much for watching this video. Come chat with me down below and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.